Good day. It's March 31st, 2025. One quarter of the year will be gone after today, and it's officially spring in the U.S. I'm Buban. Welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Marivelle Villanueva. Welcome to this week's edition.
The legal saga between the Trump administration and federal judge John Boasberg continue to dominate the headlines, considering the importance of the case. It is a question of constitutionality, of the president's executive orders, and the rule of law concerning the due process of an accused of a suspect. It is like the proxy battle between the powers of the executive branch, led by the president, and the nation's judiciary branch, which is the third branch of government, and are co-equal. The case is titled J.J.G versus Trump. The plaintiffs are 5 Venezuelan migrants who filed a case to block their deportation to a third country that the Trump administration had started using as a tactic for speedy mass deportations in cases where the origin country of the deportees are uncooperative or takes a while to negotiate their repatriation. Among the countries that have cooperated with the Trump administration in accepting deportees for a fee are Panama, Honduras, and El Salvador. The problem the ACLU and other pro-immigrants organizations looking at is that these countries are third country, not known or no relations to the deportees. An example is an Iranian legal refugee, an Indian national, who was deported to Panama, to which the deportees has no relationships with. 5 Venezuelan migrants who were suspected as gang members of the infamous Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua filed a lawsuit in D.C. more than 2 weeks ago for fear that they will be deported by the Trump administration to El Salvador or Honduras. An emergency hearing was held late Saturday afternoon on March 15 this month. Towards the end of the hearing, Justice Department lawyers told the judge that the deportation flights were already in the air and in El Salvadoran airspace. Judge Boasberg verbally ordered the government through DOJ lawyers that the planes to be turned around. In spite of the verbal order and the written order that followed 28 minutes later, the planes were not turned around to return to the U.S. Judge Boasberg held an emergency hearing the following Monday, March 17, why his order wasn't followed. DOJ lawyers argued that the verbal order was not included in the written order that was published in the court's website. Judge Boasberg demanded an explanation as to why his order was not followed, and by that Monday, demanded all flights records of timeline of the deportation planes. Attorney General Pam Bondi refused to provide those records, citing national security issues. Other Trump officials and Republican House members and Elon Musk publicly asked that Judge Boasberg be impeached for interfering with presidential action and powers. Chief Justice John Roberts, who is head of the judiciary, in a written rebuke to Trump, wrote in a letter saying, "Impeachment of a judge is not the way to go if you disagree with a judge's decision. We have appeals process, and that has been our system for more than 200 years." Since the Pam Bondi of the Justice Department and Mark Rubio of the State Department and Kristi Noem of the Homeland Security refused to give information, saying those information are state secret privileges, Judge Boasberg ordered the plaintiffs to submit by today, March 31, to respond to the Trump administration's move. More testimonies and information had already been filed at the court by the families of the plaintiffs. Among them are from families that signed affidavits that their son was included in an ICE scoop and all were labeled as members of the Tren de Aragua, even though they were not members. As many lawyers had pointed out in the media, the plaintiff's lawsuit is centered on two big issues. One is the denial of the due process, and two, the use of Alien Enemies Act of 1798, an ancient law that has only been invoked by a president twice, one in World War I and one in World War II, that resulted in the internment of Japanese Americans. Plaintiffs assert that there is no justification for using that law because we are not at war, declared or undeclared, with the country where these deportees are from.
Outrageous. That's how House Judiciary Ranking Member Jimmy Raskin, a Democrat from Maryland, described Republican Speaker Mike Johnson's comment on a press conference that the Republicans can eliminate an entire district court because they don't like the decisions the courts make, during an interview with the blogcast Talking Points Memo, or TPM. Raskin added that the proper response to disagreement with a particular court is not to abolish the court. This is obviously a naked assault on judicial independence. House Democratic Vice Chair Ted Lieu, a Democrat from Los Angeles, also described the Speaker's remark as outrageous. Congressman Lieu, who is also a member of the House Judiciary Committee, told TPM that the United States is a democracy because the judiciary is the branch that can tell us when a law has been violated. For Republicans to get rid of judicial district courts, it's just completely outrageous. It's also not going to happen. It's just stupid fantasies that they have, he added.
The Philippine-style vote buying has been brought to the United States. An Axios report says that Elon Musk is giving away $100 each to each Wisconsin voters to express opposition to what he calls activist judges, whose judges are hearing on numerous cases against President Trump ahead of the April 1 elections. The Political Action Committee of Musk, America PAC, and Building America's Future have spent $20 million combined on Brad Schimmel, the Republican who is running for justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, against Democratic candidate Susan Crawford, who is backed by George Soros and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Reports say that Elon Musk spent close to $300 million on the 2024 presidential election. A Wall Street Journal report exposes on how Elon Musk is targeting local elections in Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona. Chris Young, a senior advisor to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, was on a video call with a top Nevada political consultant on how to turn the Democrat-dominant 7-seat Clark County Commission to Republican and shape the political landscape. Musk is also targeting the gubernatorial race in Georgia ahead of the 2026 midterms, and state and U.S. Senate seats in Arizona, as Republican candidates are praising Elon ahead of the 2026 elections. This will determine not only on the April 1 this year and the midterms in 2026.
Chaos. That is how the various media outlets covering the White House and the Trump administration of the things being created by Elon Musk and this administration. Last week's new addition to destroying government function and destroying people's lives without even mentioning political colors is a new rule on Social Security benefit checks. The fraud that happens in the Social Security Administration is a mere 1%, according to experts, but Elon Musk and his Doge team and Trump officials in the administration tends to inflate and exaggerate the numbers. Some experts say that these 1% is an acceptable percentage for errors, not necessarily because of fraud. But the sensationalization of fraud in Social Security resulted in a new rule announced by the acting Social Security Administration boss, Lee Dudek. This new rule says that if you are presently receiving Social Security check, you must do an in-person identity proof beginning in April this year, or else your Social Security monthly check will stop. This announcement created a furor nationwide among Social Security payment recipients, making the millions of Americans who are on Social Security benefits to go to a Social Security Administration in person, or else the benefits will stop, and your account will be marked as fraudulent. How easy is it for a bedridden ailing Social Security beneficiary to show up at an SSA office, or a retiree who lives in the rural area to come to a district office? And how easy is it to obtain an appointment at SSA when Elon Musk's Doge had fired about 7,000 Social Security Administration workers, and their system crushing down because people are in panic to get an appointment? There are many out there, politicians, political analysts, and observers, said that this move is simply meant to cripple or dismantle the SSA. And some says the beginning of how they can privatize the SSA and award it to a company owned by a billionaire. What most Americans find insulting is the statement during an interview by Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, another billionaire, who said that missing a Social Security check isn't a big deal, that only a fraudster will complain if the Social Security monthly benefit did not come. Democratic lawmakers are asking their constituents to be vigilant and fight about this.
The Senate Intelligence Committee last week held committee hearings on the leak on the phone app called Signal, an encrypted communications program on the phone involving a conversation regarding military airstrike in Yemen by Trump's top officials. The chaos started when that chat group on Signal among top Trump officials inadvertently included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, Joseph Goldberg. The Trump administration quickly tried to dampen the mistake as nothing serious, and that the conversation was not a classified intelligence information. But both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate considered the incident as a serious national security breach and held a hearing on the incident. Last week, in the aftermath of the careless error or mistake on the part of several Trump officials, resulting in a leak of the planning of the attack on Houthi rebels in Yemen, the following officials had appeared in the Senate Intelligence Committee, where heated exchange took place between Senate Democrats and Trump officials. Among those who were summoned by the committee was CIA Director John Radcliffe, National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, and White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who indicated he made a mistake. He created the group chat on Signal and mistakenly included a journalist, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Mike Waltz said he takes full responsibility for the mistake, speaking in an interview with Fox News.
In the Nevada state, Nevada Independent newspaper reported that the Trump administration last week terminated the funding for mental health and epidemiology services that were pandemic-era funding, but was extended as a block grant under the American Rescue Plan. The cancellation of the grants comes from Elon Musk's Doge effort to cut down significantly on government spending. The notice of cancellation informed the state of Nevada that the grant was no longer necessary because they were pandemic relief programs. About 25 employees were let go from the loss of the funding. The terminated grants include community mental health block grants funded by the American Rescue Plan under President Biden, specifically designed to provide mental health care to adults with serious mental illness and children with severe emotional disturbance. Governor Lombardo's reaction was simply to say that the state will study the impact of the loss of funds. But State Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager, a Las Vegas Democrat, said in a statement that the cuts are nothing short of devastating for Nevada. Cutting them down when Nevada is still grappling with mental health crisis is particularly cruel and will leave thousands of Nevadans without access to the care they need, Speaker Steve Yeager added.
Still in Nevada, State Assembly member from Las Vegas, Elena Torres Fawcett, introduced a bill, AB 94, which will add protection for the Department of Education in the state of Nevada. This comes in the wake of Trump signing an executive order that would abolish the department. Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett said that from 2023 to the present, the state of Nevada has received nearly $6 billion in federal funding from the Department of Education. There were $315 million for special education, $3.5 million for education of homeless children, $1.4 million for rural education, $38 million for career technical education, and $621 million for federal Pell Grant funding to low-income students attain higher education. She said that the U.S. Department of Education ensures that not only every state providing the same high-quality national standards, but the Department of Education is important because it is also what is investing funds back into our schools. Her bill would mean that the state would adopt and enforce the same standards as federal government to continue the status quo in the event the department is dissolved by Congress. We are yet to obtain clarification from the Assemblywoman herself if it means the state will have to come up with that level of funding and funded by the state.
With backlash from Trump's economic policies and trade war using tariffs even among our closest ally, Canada, and loss of government jobs and devastating effects to American farmers for the loss of U.S. aid programs that purchase their products, special elections, even in heavy Republican districts, are electing Democrats. In state legislature special elections in these ruby red districts, Democratic candidates have become the alternative for the voters in their districts. Almost everywhere in the traditionally Republican states, residents and voters are expressing betrayal by Trump of causing them economic woes. On Tuesday last week, Democrat James Andrew Malone narrowly won the state Senate District 36 special election, a district that was always represented by a Republican for 136 years. Malone defeated Republican candidate Josh Parsons by a mere 482 votes in a district that was won by Trump by a 15% margin. This is the second special election for the state legislature since Trump's return to the White House. There are 3 congressional seats that will go through a special election. 2 of them will take place tomorrow, April 1st. 2 of these seats are in ruby red districts in Florida, one of the district that was represented by Matt Gaetz, who resigned from Congress after being nominated Attorney General by Trump, but voluntarily withdrawn. The other is a district last held by Mike Waltz, who is now Trump's national security advisor. There is one vacancy in Arizona created after the death of longtime Democratic Congressman Raul Grijalva, who died on March 13. The special election will be held in September this year. Arizona CD7, mostly around Tucson, Arizona, is a heavy Democratic district. There are also seats the special election has not been scheduled and that it is in New York CD21, left behind by Rep. Elise Stefanik, who now works for the Trump administration, and the House seat of Representative Sylvester Turner, who died in February. It is 1 Republican and 1 Democrat vacancy that has not been scheduled for special election. The Democratic candidate in Florida for the seat of Mike Waltz is Josh Weil, a math teacher. He outraced his Republican opponent in fundraising, amassing $10 million in campaign donations compared to Republican State Senator Randy Fine, who many in the congressional district as a MAGA mouthpiece and abrasive in personality. Josh Weil, the Democratic candidate, is way ahead in the polls, which some observers see as the people's choice to protect their Social Security and health care in Congress.
In our international news, in a report from BBC, Ethiopia's Prime Minister seeks a new Tigray leader amidst fears of conflict. Ethiopia's Prime Minister has announced plans to select a new leader in the turbulent Tigray region in order to defuse increasing tensions. Tigray's interim president, Getachew Rada, moved to Addis Ababa earlier this month, citing a power struggle within the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, which governs the territory. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took an unusual approach, asking Tigrayans to suggest who the region's future leader should be. The infighting has raised fears that Tigray would revert to the civil war that killed an estimated 500,000 people. Prime Minister Abiy stated on Wednesday that Tigray's leadership failed to create conditions for elections after the 2020 to 2022 civil war between the TPLF and Ethiopia's federal government. The Pretoria Agreement ended the conflict and established an interim administration to run the region until elections could be held.
Brazil's Supreme Court will put Bolsonaro on trial for alleged coup attempt, according to a report from Reuters news agency. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro will face trial for allegedly plotting to overthrow the government after losing the 2022 election, the Supreme Court said on Wednesday, moving quickly in a case that could change the political landscape. A 5-judge panel unanimously agreed to put Bolsonaro on trial. If proven guilty in court proceedings later this year, Bolsonaro might face a lengthy prison sentence, isolating the far-right firebrand who has refused to name a political heir. Following the ruling, Bolsonaro held a press conference in Brasilia to defend himself against grave and baseless accusations. He claimed that the judges have a personal vendetta against him. He also mentioned that coups require troops, guns, and leadership, but they have yet to identify this leader. In his opening remarks on Wednesday, Justice Alexandre de Moraes, who is overseeing the case, showed dramatic footage of Bo referring to Bolsonaro. Justice Moraes attributed the insurgency to Bolsonaro's systematic effort to discredit the election he lost and then use violence to overthrow it with the help of senior military officers and cabinet members. Bolsonaro, a former army captain who served as Brazil's president from 2019 to 2022, is accused of 5 crimes, including an attempt to abolish the democratic rule of law and a coup d'etat. He has denied any wrongdoing and denounced the case. In contrast to the labyrinth of criminal proceedings involving Trump and the January 6 Capitol riot, Brazilian courts and investigators have moved quickly against Bolsonaro, threatening to ruin his political career and shatter the right-wing movement he has built over the last decade.
Serious infractions discovered in the South Korean foreign adoptions program, Al Jazeera TV reported. In an investigation by South Korea's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, has ruled that the country's government-endorsed foreign adoption program violates the fundamental human rights of adoptees, guaranteed under the Constitution and international conventions. The Commission's findings were released on Wednesday after a nearly 3-year investigation into complaints filed by 367 of the approximately 140,000 South Korean children who were adopted to 6 European countries, including Denmark, which called on South Korea to investigate the adoptions in 2022, the US, and Australia. The committee discovered that local adoption agencies conspired with overseas agencies to mass export South Korean youngsters in order to achieve a monthly quota established by foreign demand. Among a slew of infractions, numerous children were sourced for adoption through questionable or overtly unethical techniques. According to the report, the South Korean agencies were given extensive authority over children, including full guardianships rights and the ability to consent to foreign adoptions, resulting in a lack of oversight and ultimately a large-scale inter-country adoption for children whose identities and family background were lost. Falsified or fabricated throughout this process, numerous legal and policy shortcomings emerged, leading serious violations of the rights of adoptees, their biological parents, particularly birth mothers and others involved, the Commission's head, Park Sun-young, said at a news conference on Tuesday. These violations should never have occurred, Park said. While some adoptees were lucky to grow up in loving households, others experienced significant poverty and suffering as a result of defective adoption processes. Many people are still struggling today, she added. South Korea became one of the poorest countries in the world after the disastrous 1950s Korean War, and inter-country adoption was actively encouraged as a solution for economic reasons, according to Park. We are out of time for this edition. Please join us again next week. I'm Joe Buban. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Marivelle Villanueva. God bless your week.